The moment money starts going right for you, something inside you burns it down. Not because you're lazy, not because you're bad with numbers, because your brain has a hard limit on how much good you're allowed to feel, and the second you cross it, your nervous system treats wealth like a threat. That's not a metaphor. That's neuroscience. You know the pattern. Things start clicking. A raise comes through, or a client pays on time, or you actually stick to your budget for 6 consecutive weeks and feel that rare, fragile thing, financial momentum. And then, almost on cue, something inside you reaches out and destroys it. Maybe you make a spontaneous purchase you can't explain. Maybe you start a fight with your partner about money out of nowhere. Maybe you procrastinate on an invoice until the client disappears. Maybe you just stop doing the things that were working. No reason, no logic, just a slow withdrawal from your own progress, like your foot found the brake without asking your brain first. And the cruelest part? You watched it happen. You saw yourself doing it, and you still couldn't stop. This is what financial self-sabotage psychology actually looks like from the inside. It doesn't feel dramatic. It feels like fog, like forgetting, like suddenly not caring about the thing you cared deeply about yesterday. And if you've spent years trying to escape the broke cycle, this pattern is probably the single most exhausting thing in your life, because no one talks about it. Finance channels give you spreadsheets. Self-help channels give you affirmations. But nobody explains why your own nervous system fights you every time you get close to winning. There is a reason, and it isn't a character flaw. In 2010, psychologist Hendricks published a concept he called the upper limit problem, the idea that every person has an internal thermostat for well-being, a subconscious ceiling, and the moment your life exceeds that ceiling, too much joy, too much success, too much financial safety, your brain triggers a self-destruct sequence to drag you back down to the temperature it knows. Hendricks identified this in clinical work, but here's where neuroscience makes it undeniable. Your brain has a structure called the amygdala, roughly the size and shape of an almond, buried deep in your temporal lobe, and it has one job: to take threats and respond. Fight, flee, or freeze. The problem is the amygdala doesn't distinguish between a tiger and a tax refund. It responds to whatever your nervous system has been trained to associate with danger. And if you grew up in a home where money meant tension, scarcity felt predictable, and success was punished with jealousy or chaos, your amygdala was quietly learning, logging that data, building the exact map of what to fear. Neuroscientist Bruce Perry has spent decades documenting how early relational trauma shapes the developing brain's threat detection architecture. What he found is that these associations don't live in your conscious memory. They live in your body, in your nervous system, in the subcortical regions of your brain that fire before your prefrontal cortex. Your rational, planning, decision-making brain even has a chance to weigh in. So here's what actually happens when money gets good. Your financial circumstances start to exceed the threshold your nervous system catalogued as safe during childhood. Your amygdala fires. Cortisol floods your bloodstream, the same stress hormone released during physical danger, and your prefrontal cortex goes offline. This is what researchers call an amygdala hijack. Your wealth thermostat brain has registered an alarm, and your entire cognitive system just rerouted away from logic and toward survival. That's why your sabotage doesn't feel like a decision. It isn't one. It's a stress response dressed up as a choice. The trauma response to wealth is one of the least discussed mechanisms in behavioral finance, but the research points directly at it. A 2019 study published in the Journal of Family and Economic Issues found that adults raised in financially unstable households showed measurably higher cortisol reactivity to positive financial news than those raised in stable homes. Let that land. More stress from good news. Because their nervous systems were wired to treat financial change, any financial change, as a precursor to loss. Here's exactly how this plays out in your bank account. You're earning more than you ever have. Maybe it's $500 more a month. Maybe it's $5,000. Doesn't matter. What matters is that your balance has crossed the invisible threshold your nervous system learned to fear. The cortisol is flowing, not because anything bad happened, but because something good did. So you do what stressed humans do. You spend. Impulsively, almost compulsively, because spending returns your account balance to the familiar number, the number that doesn't feel dangerous. This isn't stupidity. This is your brain actively managing its own anxiety using the most available tool, your debit card. Or maybe spending isn't your pattern. Maybe yours looks like avoidance, not opening bank statements, not filing invoices, not checking your investment account even though the market's up, because looking makes it real. And real means the good thing could be taken away. Better not to look. Better not to need it. Some people blow up income entirely. They undercharge, overdeliver, burn out their most lucrative relationships, turn down opportunities they've been building toward for years. A client offer worth $15,000 suddenly feels terrifying instead of exciting. The fear of success psychology kicks in and rewrites the opportunity as a threat to escape rather than a prize to accept. And here's what makes the broke cycle escape feel impossible. Every time the sabotage works, every time the balance drops back to familiar territory, your nervous system releases the cortisol. The threat is gone. Your body rewards the behavior with a wave of relief. You just train yourself to associate financial safety with lower balances. The cycle locks in deeper every single time. This is where it changes. Not with willpower. Willpower is a prefrontal cortex function, and your prefrontal cortex is offline during an amygdala hijack. You cannot think your way out of a nervous system response, but you can rewire the response itself. The first shift is what I call the witness pause. Before you act on any significant financial impulse, a purchase, an avoidance, a delay, you stop and name what you're feeling in your body, not your thoughts. Your body. Where is the tension? Is it in your chest, your throat, your stomach? Research by neuroscientist Antonio Damasio shows that simply labeling a somatic state, putting language to what the body is experiencing, activates the prefrontal cortex and measurably reduces amygdala activity. You're creating a neural interrupt, a gap between the hijack and the behavior. In practice, next time you feel that invisible pull to overspend or disappear from your own finances, place one hand on your chest and say out loud, "My nervous system is responding to safety like it's danger." That sentence reroutes your brain. It feels strange and it works. The second shift is threshold mapping, understanding your personal upper limit before you hit it. Think about the highest your bank balance has ever gotten before something went wrong. The specific dollar amount where things started feeling uncomfortable rather than exciting. That number is data. That's your financial trauma rewire target. When your balance approaches that threshold in the future, you're not blindsided. You're watching for the pattern. And watching for a pattern is the first step toward breaking one. Write the number down. Give the ceiling a name. Naming the threat makes it conscious, and conscious threats can be questioned in ways subconscious ones never can. The third shift is nervous system stacking, building new associations between calm and wealth at the neurological level. This is how financial trauma rewire actually happens in the brain, not through insight alone, but through repeated new experience. Every time you check your balance and choose to take 3 slow breaths before reacting, you're linking the side of a healthy number with physiological safety. Every time you sit with a financial win without immediately neutralizing it, you're rewriting the amygdala's map. Small, consistent, deliberate. Neuroplasticity researcher Michael Merzenich spent a career confirming that new neural pathways are built through repetition, not revelation. You don't need a breakthrough. You need a practice. So let's come back to where we started. The moment money starts going right for you, something inside you burns it down. Now you know what that something is. It isn't weakness. It isn't a character flaw baked into your DNA. It's a cortisol-driven ceiling response built by a nervous system that learned to survive uncertainty by treating abundance as unsafe. It's a protection mechanism that outlived its usefulness, and like any outdated system, it can be updated. The most radical thing you can do for your financial life isn't to earn more. It's to teach your nervous system that it's safe to keep it. Your wealth limit isn't a math problem. It's a nervous system problem. And now you know the difference. So here's what I want to ask you. What's the first memory you have of money feeling dangerous? Not a number, a moment. Because I genuinely believe that single memory holds more information about your financial present than any budget you've ever built. And I'd love to hear it.